I never thought I would be labeled as ungrateful by my own family. But here I am, working tirelessly just to make ends meet, only to be told that I'm a bad son because I don't send money home. It wasn't like I didn't care. I love my parents. I appreciate the sacrifices they made to raise me. But does love have to come with a price tag? Sitting in my tiny one-bedroom apartment, I scrolled through my bank app, sighing at the numbers staring back at me. Rent was due in a few days. My student loans weren't getting any smaller. Groceries, gas, insurance, it all added up. And yet, none of that seemed to matter to my parents. My phone buzzed. It was my mom. I hesitated before answering. "Hey, Mom," I said, forcing a smile through the exhaustion in my voice. "Did you send the money yet?" she asked, skipping any greetings. I took a deep breath. "Mom, I told you. I'm barely getting by. I just don't have anything extra this month." Silence. Then a disappointed sigh. "So you're saying you can't even help your own family? After everything we did for you?" My stomach twisted. This wasn't new. Every conversation felt like a transaction, like I owed them for being born. "Mom, it's not that I don't want to help. It's just, you have a job, don't you?" she interrupted. "How can you not have money? What are you spending it on?" "Bills, food, trying to survive." But I knew she wouldn't accept that answer. I need to take care of myself too," I said carefully. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "Your father and I worked so hard for you. We never thought we'd raise a son who would abandon his own parents the moment he made a little money." My chest tightened. I wasn't abandoning them. I was just trying to build a life for myself. Was that so wrong? Before I could say anything else, she added, "You should be ashamed of yourself." Click. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, the guilt settling in like a heavy weight on my shoulders. No matter what I did, I was always the bad guy. But deep down, I couldn't shake the question. Was I really wrong for wanting to keep what little I had? I tried to shake off the conversation with my mom, but the guilt followed me everywhere. At work, I stared blankly at my computer screen, my mind replaying her words on a loop. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Was I really a bad son? Was I selfish for wanting to keep my hard-earned money? That evening, as I drove home, I called my best friend, Jake. He was the only person I could talk to about this. "Dude, you look exhausted," he said when we hopped on a video call later. "What's going on?" I sighed. "Same old. My mom called, asking for money again. I told her I couldn't afford it, and she made me feel like the worst son on the planet." Jake shook his head. "Man, you work 50, 60 hours a week just to pay your own bills. It's not like you're rolling in cash." "I know," I said, rubbing my temples. But in her eyes, it doesn't matter. She thinks just because I have a job, I should be sending money home. She even asked what I was spending it on, like I'm out here wasting it. Jake frowned. "Let me guess. Rent, student loans, food." "Exactly," I muttered. "But none of that matters to her. To her, I'm just ungrateful." There was a pause before Jake spoke again. "Dude, I don't know how to say this without sounding harsh, but this isn't normal." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, yeah, it's cool if someone wants to help their family, but your parents are expecting it. Like it's your job to take care of them now. That's not how it's supposed to be." I swallowed hard. Deep down, I had always known that. But hearing someone else say it out loud made it feel more real. "I just don't know what to do," I admitted. "Every time I say no, they guilt trip me. It's like they think I owe them for raising me." "Bro, parents are supposed to raise their kids. That's literally the job of being a parent," Jake said firmly. "You didn't sign up for this debt. You don't owe them your future." I stayed quiet. I had never looked at it that way before. But before I could say anything, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from my younger cousin, Emily. "Emily, hey, just a heads up. Your mom's been talking to the family about you." My stomach dropped. "Me? What do you mean?" "Emily. She told everyone you don't care. About her and Dad. That you're too selfish to help them even though you have a good job." My hands clenched into fists. It wasn't enough that she was mad at me. Now she was turning the whole family against me. Almost immediately, my phone started lighting up with messages from aunts, uncles, and even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. "Aunt Linda. How could you treat your parents this way? Uncle Ray. Your mom and dad sacrificed so much for you. You should be grateful. Grandma. In our day, children always took care of their parents." shameful. I stared at the screen in disbelief. They didn't even bother asking for my side of the story. They had already decided I was the villain. My jaw tightened as I typed out a response to Emily. Me. Thanks for letting me know. I didn't bother replying to the others. What was the point? No matter what I said, they would just twist it to make me look worse. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. My own family, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, had turned their backs on me. All because I chose to survive instead of sacrificing everything for them. I sat there, phone in hand, wondering, if I wasn't their financial provider, did I even mean anything to them at all? A few days passed, but the silence from my family was deafening. No calls, no texts, just the occasional passive-aggressive post on Facebook from one of my relatives about how kids these days have no respect. At first, I thought maybe this was a good thing. Maybe the distance would give me some peace. But instead, it felt suffocating. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, my phone rang. It was my mom. I hesitated before answering. I knew what was coming. Hello? Her voice was cold. So, you're just ignoring the family now? I sighed. Mom, I'm not ignoring anyone. You embarrassed me, James. Her voice shook with anger. Do you know how humiliating it is to have people asking why my own son refuses to take care of his parents? My grip tightened on the phone. Mom, I do care about you and Dad. But I can't keep giving money I don't have. I have rent, student loans, bills. She scoffed. Excuses. You think we didn't have bills when we were raising you? We never complained. We worked hard, sacrificed, and gave you everything. And now, when we need you, you turn your back on us? Mom, that's not fair, I said, my voice breaking. You're acting like I owe you my entire paycheck just because you raised me. That's how family works, she snapped. We take care of each other. I took a deep breath. Then why does it feel like I'm the only one expected to do the taking care? There was silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end, but she didn't have a response. For the first time, I realized something. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about family. This was about control. She didn't just want money. She wanted to remind me that no matter how old I got, I would always be under her authority. That my choices, my future, my happiness, none of it belonged to me, and I had let it happen for years. Something inside me snapped. Mom, I said slowly, if you loved me, really loved me, you wouldn't be trying to make me feel like a failure for taking care of myself. Her breath hitched. How dare you talk to me like that? I stood up, pacing my tiny apartment. No, how dare you? I shot back. I have spent my whole life trying to be a good son. Trying to make you proud. But no matter what I do, it's never enough for you. You don't care that I'm struggling. You just want control over me. You're being dramatic, she spat. All we're asking for is a little help. A little help? I let out a bitter laugh. You expect me to send money every month, drop everything when you call, and take care of you like I don't have a life of my own. And the second I say no, you tell the whole family I'm a disappointment. What part of that is a little? More silence. For the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter now. I just thought you'd be better than this. A familiar wave of guilt crashed over me. But this time, I pushed it away. I am better than this, Mom, I said, my voice steady. I deserve to live my own life. She let out a shaky breath. So this is it, then? You're done with us? I swallowed the lump in my throat. No, but I am done being treated like an ATM. She didn't respond. I exhaled. I love you. But if you can't accept that I have my own life to live, then I don't know what else to say. The call ended. I stood there, staring at my phone, my heart pounding. For the first time in years, I had said everything I needed to say. And for the first time, I wasn't the one left feeling guilty. The days following that phone call were some of the most emotionally draining of my life. At first, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I had finally stood up for myself after years of being manipulated. But that relief didn't last long. I started getting calls from my relatives. First, it was my aunt. James, she sighed dramatically, I heard about the argument with your mother. She's heartbroken. How could you talk to her like that? I closed my eyes, already exhausted. Aunt Linda, I didn't do anything wrong. I just told her I couldn't send money anymore. That's not the point, she said, her tone dripping with disappointment. You know how she is. You should have been more understanding. I clenched my jaw. So, what? I should just let her guilt trip me into giving her money I don't have? You could at least show some respect, she snapped. Do you think we wanted to take care of our parents when they got older? No, but we did it because that's what family does. I could feel the old guilt creeping in again. The same guilt that had kept me trapped in this cycle for years, but I forced myself to push back. If family is supposed to take care of each other, I said carefully, then why don't they ever care if I'm struggling? There was silence on the other end. Look, I continued, I love my parents. I do, but love shouldn't be measured in money. And I refuse to let them shame me into thinking I'm a bad son just because I can't afford to pay their bills. Aunt Linda huffed. Fine, be selfish. But don't come crying to us when you regret this. She hung up. The calls didn't stop. There, one by one, my family members reached out. Each conversation followed the same pattern: disappointment, guilt-tripping, and passive-aggressive comments about how money isn't everything, while simultaneously demanding I give them more of it. But the worst one was my father. I hadn't heard from him much throughout this whole ordeal. My mom had always been the loud, emotional one, while my dad was quieter, more reserved. I always thought that meant he understood me better. But when he finally called, my heart sank. I expected better from you, son, he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Dad, please. Your mother and I worked our whole lives to give you a good future. And this is how you repay us? I gritted my teeth. Dad, I'm not repaying you. That's not what being a parent is about. You raised me because you chose to. It wasn't some kind of business transaction. You wouldn't even have a life if it weren't for us, he shot back. You wouldn't have an education, a job, a place to live. And now you can't even spare a little to help your own parents? I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. Dad, I'm barely getting by myself. I have bills, student loans. I can't just throw money around like it grows on trees. Maybe if you spent less on yourself, you'd have more for the people who raised you, he muttered. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I had spent my whole life trying to make them proud. I worked hard, got good grades, stayed out of true BLE, and did everything they asked. And yet, no matter what I did, I was never enough. And now, just because I was setting boundaries, I was suddenly the villain? I took a deep breath. You know what, Dad? If you really think the only way I can prove my love is by giving you money, then maybe you never really loved me in the first place. Watch your mouth, boy, he warned. No, I said firmly. I've spent years walking on eggshells, trying to be the perfect son. But I won't let you guilt trip me into believing I'm a failure just because I'm choosing my own life over your expectations. My father was silent. For a long moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, he would finally understand. That he would take a deep breath and say, "You're right, son. I'm sorry." But instead, he let out a bitter laugh. Fine, he said, do whatever you want. Just don't come running back to us when you realize you made the wrong choice. And then he hung up. I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. This was it. I had finally stood up to them. And in return, they had all turned their backs on me. I should have felt free. Instead, all I felt was heartbreak. The silence that followed was both deafening and suffocating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't drowning in my family's expectations, guilt trips, or demands. But instead of relief, I felt empty. Days passed without a single message from my parents. No calls, no texts, not even a passive-aggressive Facebook post. I tried to convince myself that this was for the best. That I had done the right thing by standing my ground. But the weight of their absence was heavier than I expected. At work, I went through the motions, struggling to focus. At home, my phone sat on the table, untouched, as I debated whether I should be the first to reach out. Would they even answer? Or would I just be proving them right, that I couldn't handle the consequences of my own decision? One night, as I was scrolling aimlessly through my messages, I came across an old text from my mom. It was from last year, on my birthday. Happy birthday, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Call me when you have time. Love you. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Had things really changed that much? Or had they always been this way, and I was just now seeing it clearly? It took weeks, but little by little, I started to adjust. I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come. I stopped feeling guilty for choosing myself for once. And most importantly, I stopped believing that love had to be measured in dollar signs. Then, one evening, my phone rang. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the caller ID, Mom. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Hello? There was a pause. Then, a quiet sigh. Hi, James. Her voice was softer than I expected. Not angry, not accusing, just tired. I was just calling to check on you, she said. It's been a while. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, it has. Another pause. Then, are you doing okay? I closed my eyes, feeling a mix of emotions swirl inside me. I wanted to say no, I'm not okay. I miss you. I hate this. But I also wanted to remind her that she was the one who pushed me away first. Instead, I settled for honesty. I'm doing better, I said. It's been hard, but I'm figuring things out. She hummed in response. That's good. Neither of us knew what to say next. I wanted to ask if she had changed, if she had finally understood why I had to walk away. I was afraid of the answer. So instead, I said, How's Dad? He's the same, she admitted. Still stubborn, still upset. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, I figured. Another beat of silence passed before she finally said, James, I don't want us to stop talking. I swallowed. Me neither. I still don't agree with everything you said, she continued carefully, but I miss you. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. But it was something, and for now, that was enough. Hey everyone. Thanks for sticking with me through this story. This was one of the hardest experiences I've ever had to navigate, and I know I'm not the only one who's been in this position. Have you ever felt like you had to choose between your own happiness and your family's expectations? Have you ever been called ungrateful or selfish just for setting boundaries? If so, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments. I read every single one, and your story might help someone else going through the same thing. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next story. And if you know someone who might relate to this, share this video with them. You never know who might need to hear it today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.